Joining me now, CNN political and Axios global affairs correspondent Barak Ravid. In his recent piece for Axios, Trump tells Axios he expects Iran deal in a day or two. Barak, thanks for being here. We're seeing Iranian gunboats firing on a tanker, ships turning around, and the U.S. enforcing its blockade. Are we looking at a situation that's unraveling?
I'm not sure, at least not yet. It could definitely happen. It could definitely be the case. But I think it could also be part of the negotiations. We are really in the last moments of this negotiation before the ceasefire expires on April 21st. And I think a lot of what we see and hear is part of this, both sides are trying to, push and pull. And there are some of those things happen in the negotiations. Some of those things happen on the ground, in the battlefield. And I think it's all connected. And I think we'll see in the next 24 hours whether there is a breakthrough in the negotiations that would allow reaching a deal, because we'll know in the next 24 hours, because negotiators will have to travel from the U.S. To Pakistan, which is 20-hour travel. So we will know. And if they don't travel, then we will know that this thing is unraveling.
You heard me say at the outset, one of the other recent developments is that Iran is now signaling it won't transfer its enriched uranium. How does that change the likelihood of a deal, and what does it tell us about where this now stands?
I'm not sure this is true. The Iranians say a lot of things. I don't see a scenario where the Iranians don't remove at least some of their highly enriched uranium out of the country. I will be very surprised because I think this is a core U.S. demand. I think there's room for negotiation over it, meaning if you have 2,000 kilograms of enriched uranium, you don't have to get all of it out of the country. You can get some of it out of the country. Some of it you downblend inside the country. The end result is what matters, that at the end of the day, Iran will not have enriched uranium, definitely not highly enriched uranium. But I think that everything that has to do with moving material out of the country, there's a lot of symbolism there. There's a lot of politics there on both sides. The U.S. wants to be able to say, oh, you see, we got them to remove the uranium out of the country. The Iranians want to be able to say, you see, we didn't remove the uranium out of the country. So I think we will see something. If there is a deal, we'll see a solution that both sides will be able to say that they won.
Barak, you've reported that to some extent, President Trump has been directly in touch with the Iranians. What can you say about that?
Well, that's something that Senator Lindsey Graham has been saying over the last 2 days. White House officials confirm that President Trump was involved, indeed, in those negotiations directly. And I think this is connected to the visit that the commander of the Pakistani Army, Field Marshal Asim Munir, had in Iran. He was there for 3 whole days. And the sole purpose of this visit was to negotiate. And Munir was there with the Iranian negotiators. And I think it would be a likely assumption that during those talks, obviously, U.S. negotiators were on the line. And I think when the White House says President Trump was directly involved, it wouldn't surprise me if he was also on the line.
Can you give me the view from Israel? As you know, President Trump, quote unquote, prohibited Israel from further strikes against Lebanon. Are the Israelis, is Prime Minister Netanyahu, on board with the path that this is taking directed by President Trump?
Well, first, he doesn't have a choice. Netanyahu and Trump are joined at the hip. After everything Donald Trump did for Benjamin Netanyahu, there's not a lot that Benjamin Netanyahu can do when Donald Trump tells him, I need you to do this for me. And I think this is what we see with the ceasefire in Lebanon. Netanyahu tried to stall. He tried to play for time. He tried to drag his feet. At the end of the day, Donald Trump told him, listen, this needs to stop. And it did. Yesterday, when President Trump posted this statement that Israel is prohibited by the United States to take any military action in Lebanon, I think Netanyahu and his team were quite shocked. They were caught off guard by this post because the understandings that, the document with the understandings that the State Department itself published on Thursday said that Israel can take military action against imminent threats, which is not what the president said. And the Israelis asked for clarifications. The White House clarified that what is written in this document still stands. And by the way, today, the IDF conducted strikes against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, which shows that I think at the end of the day, the Israelis still think that they have a green light to conduct strikes against imminent threats in Lebanon.
Barak Ravid, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you for being with us.